ask people giving our service just to make sure if you have a cell phone that you put it on vibrate or shut it off completely. Thank you. Going to begin our service.
Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo etzav, b'nodei she'yor b'tzeini, omer menuchot yanachaleni, nafshi yishovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek, למען שמו גם מכירי בגצם מוות לא אראה רק כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תרוך לפני שולחן נגיד צור ארעי תשעת בשם ראשי כוסי רוויית אך טוב החסד ידפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Kol omer krav amar ma'akra, kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir navel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashvavo. A voice says to cry out, but I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flower fades when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. It's not always what people say that matters. It's really the way they make you feel. It's always about the way somebody else makes you feel. And then you remember afterwards how you felt when you were with them. And Jerry Gordon always made people smile. He made people laugh. He made people feel good. And that's more than any one quote or even any one moment. People remember what they felt like when they were with him. Darla, you and Jerry would come in for services. You just always seemed to be smiling, enjoying a private joke of your own world, and then wanting to share it with other people. Just always with a good tone and having a good time and wanting to bring others in. Just very happy. Almost as if the two of you had found a great gift in each other and were going to savor it every day. I know that for the kids, at a certain point in your upbringing, your father had to be in Columbus during the week and only home on weekends, but it didn't matter because when you're with him, he made you feel special. He shared time with you and his attention was always on you. He made you feel loved. And always a jokester. Always with a grin, a twinkle in his eye. He was fun. He was effusive. He was warm. He was engaging. He knew how to connect with people, and he knew how to show his love. This was a man whose circle just grew larger and larger over time. The number of people in his circle grew larger because once he was in your life, he stayed close. It was just the way he made people feel. Your mother and father were no longer married, but they remained friends. And they remained in touch with each other. They remained part of each other's world. As the family grew, Jerry became an adored grandpa, and Darlie became a grandfather to the next generation in your family as well. His circle simply grew larger and larger. As you entered into each other's lives, I think you told me, Darlie, your mother always felt comfortable with Jerry from the very beginning. The Godiva chocolates probably didn't hurt that he brought each time. And he was also close to, of course, his own siblings. The Barbie and Larry and David, just always close. The circle kept getting larger. And, of course, his clients became like friends to him. He was a wonderful salesperson because he really cared about his customers. He had his own stores. He handled all aspects of the business. He did the purchasing and the buying. But it was his magnetism with customers that really set him apart. It wasn't a game. It wasn't a put-on. It was earnest. It was sincere. That's the way he was. When he thought to retire, he sold the stores, but he missed his people. He missed his customers. And so he began to sell for other stores. He missed helping people because everything in his life was relationships. Everything in his life was connection and relationships. And that instinct to help led to all that volunteer work that he continued to do throughout his life, including helping blind children learn how to swim. He had been a champion swimmer in high school and college. He was very generous with his time. And from the stories you told me, he was also evidently very generous with his toupee. He took it off and on in restaurants all the time to confuse people, to get a rise out of anybody. His thing, I don't know. Always lighthearted, always lighthearted. His devotion to family was clearly his primary value, his primary calling. And it wasn't only during the lighthearted moments, but at all times, and in serious, sobering moments. When Andrew developed his many challenges, Jerry was devoted, he was present, he was supportive, he was loving, he was welcoming, he was engaging. He gave all of you unconditional love. You were close, and you grew even more so with him as you all grew into adulthood. He was close to his parents when he was younger, close to his father, who died early. Jerry was still in his early 20s, and he was close to his mother, kind-hearted mother. And through it all, he remained an optimist. When there were tough times for others, he was supportive and kind. When he had his own struggles, he retained that desire to live life. As his own eyesight failed, he listened to books on tape. He listened to life if he couldn't see all of life. Kept up his relationships with the younger generations. He found a way. He found a way. I always like to point out that the mezuzah on our doorpost points in two directions. Points inside your house to the private areas, and points outside to the public areas. Jerry was the same inside with his family and outside to the world. You met the same person. Same person on Monday as on Thursday as on Sunday. Enthusiastic, funny, loving, endearing personality, involved. And he was the same during the prime years of his life, and also even as some of his own abilities waned and weakened. All of you gave your love to him. And Darla, I know you were exceptional in your never-ending support in anything that he needed during these years. Really a role model to everybody. A role model to all for the spirit, more than any other word, for the spirit that he carried around. His was a very unique spirit in all things and in all points of his life. His spirit carried him, carried others, carried many of you during both your easier and more difficult periods. You knew that his spirit would sustain you. He lived with a good name, and he died with a good name. We want to call on individuals now to give thoughts. Darla, I think you'll be first. Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a letter that I wrote to Jerry and read to him last Saturday. I hope he heard it. To my beloved Jerry, when we first met, I was at a point in my life when I thought I would never smile or laugh again. But you changed that. Not only did I smile, I laughed, and we laughed, and loved and enjoyed life. We traveled, we dined, enjoyed the theater at Playhouse Square, orchestra concerts at Severance Hall, all while you continued to work until the ripe old age of 81 or 82. You took pride in our ever-growing families, Andrew and Renee, Stuart and Susan, Ellison and Carrie, and Johnny of blessed memory. Jeffrey and Chris, Deborah and Michael, grandchildren, Alexander and Kristen, Remy, Leah and Rabbi Daniel, Michael and his girlfriend Ari, Max and Samantha, David and Sophia and her fiancé Ben, Justin and Audrey, Abby and her boyfriend Andrew, and David and Matthew. And then along came great-grandchildren, Gavi, Nomi, Sammy, Gemma, Kinsley, and Hadley. Wow. All of these lucky people to have you in their lives. You took pride in the men's retail stores you owned at one time, as well as working for others afterward and helping them continue their success. With all that, you were a valuable volunteer in Columbus at the Ohio State School for the Blind. You taught visually impaired children how to swim and accompanied some of them to compete in the Special Olympics at various locations across the country. You even transcribed a book, Ice Castles, to Braille. Quite amazing. You inspired me to learn how to cook and the value of volunteering. You gave me confidence in myself that I never had. For all of this and the beautiful memories we have shared, I feel so blessed and grateful. I will always love you, and I will miss you.
And now Elson and Stuart.
Does anybody want to come in? They can come in.
So, thank you all for coming here. And, sorry, just need a minute. My dad was simply the best. Whenever I needed a hug or someone to make me laugh, he was always there. In 92 years, he faced his share of challenges, but he always found a way to come out smiling. And he shared that gift with everyone he knew. I'm sure other people are going to talk about his childhood and what to focus on and da-da-da-da. But I want to just talk about what he meant to me. For as long as I can remember, I was Daddy's little girl. I felt his unconditional love every day. From the moment I was born, and I know I will feel him the rest of my life. He was a steady support in my most difficult times, especially when Johnny passed away. He always knew exactly where to be, and that was right next to me. He loved his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren so much. They were his life. And there were a lot of them. But he didn't, there were no preferences. There was no, I love, 'cause behind the scenes, I really like that one more. Wasn't that. He truly had love for all of them. And when I got remarried and Carrie came into our family, he immediately welcomed him with love and open arms. Like there was no difference. And I have to say that I'm also blessed because my Johnny's family also welcomed him with open arms. And he just blended right in. It's just one of us. I kind of went out of order a little bit, but that's okay. He's even when his most difficult times, he still found joy, so much joy in his great-grandchildren. Gavi and Nomi and dear sweet Gemma. I know that you will hear stories as you grow up. I'm not sure exactly what else I'm supposed to say, but I love my father. I will miss my father. Rest in peace, Dad.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Stuart. I'm the one that left here in 1978, so a lot of people I haven't seen for a couple years. But Rabbi Scoff, thank you so much for being here with us today. And you said much better what I would be able to say, so I'm going to let you. I'm going to skip that part of it. But 92 years old. You don't get to 92 without having a really great support. And my dad was lucky. He had Darla for 30 years, right? 30 years. It's a long time. And without her support, I mean, she was there for him all the time. In the beginning, I know that they used to go out on these. They had what is it called? A rental. What are these?
Timeshare.
A timeshare. That was it. I'm in the real estate business. Yeah, I should know that. But so they had this timeshare, and they would call and they'd say, "Oh, we're going to New Mexico, or we're going to California, or we're going someplace." You're always on the move. But what was really important? You always came home to family. And same thing with Ellison was just saying. He had not only was she a great daughter. I mean, she was a great daughter to my dad, and and he knew that, and then when you met Carrie, and he joined the family just seamlessly, and over the past couple months, I hear all these stories, and I was lucky enough that I came up to Cleveland a few times, and I was able to watch Carrie and Johnny do the play-by-play. They did for baseball, they did for the Browns, they did for Ohio State. And meanwhile, I don't even know when the hell Dad even started liking sports. I mean, I remember I would ask him how many innings are in a football game. He'd say 12. So I don't even know where this came from, but I know that he really, really enjoyed, the play-by-plays. And again, I think it all really came down to just being with family, and being able to be around and surround himself with everybody, and that was what was really important to him. And seeing everybody here, I think he'd be like, "Wow, this is pretty cool." So, anyways, that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I dreamed last night I got on the boat to heaven, and by some chance I had brought my dice along, and there I stood and hollered, someone faded me, but the passengers knew right from wrong. For the people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat. That was the song that we heard over and over and over and over, even until the last time I saw my papa. We would say, for the people all said, sit down, and even at the ripe age of 91, he would recite the entire song. So right now what's happening is me, my brother, and sister are just going to share a couple of our favorite memories of our papa. First one that comes to mind for me as a kid was, as we all know, my papa had these clothing stores. And one of my favorite childhood games was playing hide and seek in the clothing racks of Christian St. John at Beechwood Place. I would always pick out the jackets, like the one with all the NBA and MLB patches that I would want one day. But hide and seek was a major thing for me. I learned how to play in those clothing racks. To him fitting me for my bar mitzvah suit. Making sure it fit just right. Then there was la-di-do. Some people may say, what is la-di-do? And the real answer is, we have no idea. It's an imaginary thing, but whenever we were sad, Papa would be like, I got la-di-do coming for you. And even when I was in college, my grandfather would go like this. My mom would say, he's actually doing it, and he'd throw it. And I'd be sitting in class, or I'd be sitting in my dorm room, and I'd put my hand up, and I'd catch it. And I would always have my la-di-do to keep me safe. Then one of my favorite things that happened recently as an adult is my grandfather had a watch that he got in 1977. And one day he asked what time it was, and I said I don't have my phone on me. And he took his Rolex and he handed it to me. And it has his name inscribed on the inside. But then when I go, well, Papa, it's not working right now. And I go, when was the last time you had your watch serviced? And he goes, what's the year on the inside say? And I said, 1977. He goes, that's when. But I now wear this watch every day, and it's something that really connects me to him. So, Papa, I love you, and I will always love you. Rest in peace.
Like everyone has said, Papa Jerry was the best. And he had this sort of magic about him. And there's really no other way to describe him. We were all so lucky to grow up in the same city as him, so I'll just speak from my perspective. I got to hang out with him all the time. He came to all of my performances growing up. I don't think he missed a single show from the time I was in second grade till I graduated high school. He even made it out to when I was in the national tour of Curious George and the Golden Meatball. He was very proud of me for running around like a monkey, and he was there. You know, and I think it was Uncle Stuart who said, I loved watching Cleveland sports with him. Even when he wasn't able to hear or see so well, he would sit really close to the TV, like this is the TV and this is him. And my stepdad, Kerry, he would call out plays, and if he left the room, even for like a second or whatever, I'd take over play calling for him. He loved celebrating his favorite teams, and I loved watching him just be joyous about it. And a final quick story about Papa. When I was really, really young, he did this magic trick. It was called the Wizard. He told me to pick a card, and then he'd make a phone call to someone, who I found out later in life was his cousin Richard. And they had this planned dialogue, so that there were specific cues that they'd have on each side of the phone conversation. And once the wizard knew the card, Papa would put up the phone on the speaker, and in a weird, grumbly voice, the wizard said, "Your card is the 2 of spades." And I lost my mind. This was magic. This was sorcery. There was no doubt about it. So now, even though later I found out it was a trick, it was never really a trick to me. It was my grandfather just being pure magic. Something that he had for his entire life, and something I'll try and hold on to for the rest of mine. I love you.
Okay. When I was 10 years old, I went over to my grandfather's house for a sleepover, and it was just me. And like any nice young Jewish girl, I said, I'd like to make Easter eggs. And so he said, that is a great idea, because he said yes to us when we were kids. Now, this was actually a terrible idea, because neither of us had any idea how to make an Easter egg. And so we said, okay, great. We're going to grab some eggs, And neither of us thought, oh, we should hard boil an egg because, again, Jews, and we did not know how to do this. And so we said, oh, let's just put the eggs in the microwave and turn them on. Yeah, you all know where this is going. And he said to me, how long do you think? I was like, 10 minutes should do it. So we put the eggs in a bowl and put them in the microwave for 10 minutes, went into the other room, and then suddenly there was a very loud explosion, which point we walked back into the kitchen and saw egg everywhere. And needless to say, we did not make Easter eggs, but it is a moment that I think of every time I hear his name, because it captures so much of the spirit of that mischievous twinkle of a yes. Let's see what happens if. He was also a grandfather who taught us so much without knowing, and simply by modeling who he was in the world. Whether it be a love of literature, he was a man who was always reading, or in later years listening, and eager to talk to us about big ideas and what was happening in the world and in his books. Whether he taught us to appreciate fine art by going to museums or just walking through all of the art that was in their house. And whose stories of teaching people who had lost their sight to swim inspired all of us, I think, at a very young age to look out for opportunities to help and to do good. And as Michael sang at the start, he reinforced in all of us a love of music. And though my strongest musical association was not his star turn as nicely, thank you, but rather any time he was in the room with a piano, whether it was Aunt Evie and Uncle Larry's house, or our house on Lansdowne, or even to this day in my mom and Carrie's house with my kids running around, he would sit down and play the same opening notes to Debussy's masterpiece. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum. Bum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum. And on he would go from there, rendering the melody all the more beautiful with the love and history and memories imbued in every note. We love you, Papa.
Please rise, everybody, for the memorial prayer.
מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המסה מנוחה נחנה, תוך רחבי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, גזרקים המצילים, את נשמת יעקב ישראל בן אברהם, שהלך לעולמו, בהרחמים יסירו, בצדק כנפיו לעולמים. ויתרון בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום המשכבו, ונאמר אמן.
May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed while in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. God is now his portion. May he rest in peace. And we all say amen. Let's be seated, everyone. We want to offer our condolences to Darla, to Andrew and Renee, Stuart and Susan, Ellison and Carrie, Jeffrey and Chris, Deborah and Michael, and to the grandchildren, David, Sophia, Alexander, Kristen, Remy, Leah, Daniel, Michael, Max, Samantha, Justin, Avery, Abby, Matthew, and David. Did I get everybody? There, I got everybody. The grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, Gavi, Nomi, Gemma, Sammy, Kinsley, and Hadley. We want to mention that the service will be paused at this point to allow time to move by processional to the burial spot at Bet Olam Cemetery. The Shiva visitation will begin following the burial, and the times for Shiva, and the Shiva is in Beechwood at Ellison and Carey's home. The address is 25896 Fairmont Boulevard. Again, 25896 Fairmont Boulevard. Today, following services until 4 p.m., this evening from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., and Friday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Let's please remain in our seats, everybody, but the pallbearer should now come forward.